Grunge. The term loosely defining the Pacific Northwest punk rock movement and sludgy Seattle sound from the late 80s to mid-90s. According to legend, the term was coined by either Bruce Pavitt or Jonathan Poneman and means dirt or grime, possibly in reference to the signature distorted guitars, the messy punk aesthetic, or the infamous drug of choice for many bands. A golden age of transcendent punk decadence. The definition of what makes a grunge album is arguably more about the time period and cultural movement than the sound itself. Flagshipped by Nirvana, bands like Mother Love Bone, Mudhoney, Green River, Soundgarden, Temple of the Dog, and Alice in Chains also pioneered the early movement and crafted the sound that we consider grunge today. This video essay is on what I consider the 5 greatest grunge albums of all time. And we're actually starting with number 1 to get the eye rolls out of the way. I don't care what anybody says, the greatest grunge album of all time is Nevermind by Nirvana. There's not much left to say about this simultaneously genre-bending and defining album. It was the perfect sound at the perfect time and a cultural statement that's become larger than life. The pacing and structure are masterful. Every song on this album hits, but some of the best include Smells Like Teen Spirit, Come As You Are, Lithium, and Drain You. Although this is usually seen as the quintessential grunge album, it features masterful incorporated elements of psychedelic, folk, metal, punk, and noise rock, often all at once in a soup so delicious that we now classify it as its own thing. In an effort to champion bands and albums other than Nirvana, I've kept this list to 1 album per band, but it wouldn't be right if I didn't shout out their other incredible albums In Utero and Bleach. The second greatest grunge album of all time is Dirt by Alice in Chains. From the moment this record starts, Staley Cantrell and company Godsmack us with an electrifying hair metal grunge wave that doesn't let up for nearly an hour. This album is dark, heavy, and a really cool whirlwind of emotions. I love sinking deeper and deeper into this downward spiral as it plays. I love Staley's yelling over Cantrell's masterful shredding. Following Alice in Chains' sound is literally listening to the transition from hair metal to grunge, and this album is their magnum opus to the latter, but also to Dirt, aka Heroin. Some of the best songs on this album include Them Bones, Damn That River, Rain When I Die, Down in a Hole, and Wood, an awesome tribute to the late Andrew Wood of Mother Love Bone. I also love their 1994 EP, Jar of Flies, Facelift, and their self-titled LP, sometimes referred to as Tripod. The third best grunge album of all time is Super Unknown by one of the great OG grunge bands, Soundgarden. Although grunge music wasn't over by 1994, this album was released 1 month before Kurt Cobain's death, and I almost hear it as the soundtrack during the rainy credit roll. Black Hole Sun is a beautiful anthem and perhaps my favorite grunge song ever. I love Chris Cornell's warm, raspy voice. Other hits on this LP include Fell on Black Days and Spoon Man. Many fans consider Soundgarden's awesome 1991 album Bad Motorfinger, which slaps, to be better than Super Unknown, but they're definitely wrong. The fourth best grunge album is 10 by Pearl Jam. It took me a while to come around to Eddie Vedder's voice, and I understand if it turns you off, but this album is kind of amazing, and hits like Even Flow and Alive are undeniable. I read that their name was in reference to literal jam with psychedelics in it, and while I'm sure this was a joke, I love to imagine them as the 90s Grateful Dead just tripping balls on actual jam. No other jam band was shredding quite like Pearl Jam. I love the psychedelic wailing on cuts like Once and Black. Like many other 90s bands, despite being a little corny, this album goes hard. And the fifth greatest grunge album of all time is Above by the supergroup Mad Season, originally calling themselves the Gacy Bunch. Released in 1995, this album feels like McCready and Staley's orchestrated grunge opus, with its long, beautifully haunting psychedelic punk ballads. Each member's individual talents come together in familiar yet excitingly fresh ways. Mike McCready's vision is at times transcendent, and his crunchy guitar riffs are awesome. As an effort to get his friends sober, this project feels tragic and hopeful at the same time. Lane Staley's vocal performances throughout this record are incredibly powerful as always. The best tracks are when he's able to shine, like on Riff Road Deceit, I Don't Know Anything, and Long Gone Days. A few honorable mentions I'd like to shout out are Temple of the Dog's 1990 grunge-defining and self-titled LP, Sweet Oblivion and Dust by Screaming Trees, Super Fuzz Big Muff, the EP and later LP by Mudhoney, Houdini by Melvins, Bricks Are Heavy by L7, and Live Through This by Hole. The Pacific Northwest scene in the early 90s was truly special and has stood the test of time. Although the movement ended long ago, the influence of its music and bands reached the corners of almost every subculture and genre of music today. Thanks for watching. For more content like this, hit like and subscribe.